So I'm going to talk a little bit about heart rate training. Um, Probably the endurance athletes out there are really familiar with it. Maybe some of the other athletes have seen it, heart rate variability, shit like that. There's a lot of different variations out there. But what I'm going to tap into really quickly here is using it as a gauge for your recovery status or your training status, or kind of actually even like throttling yourself back to make sure you don't overtrain. So Phil Maffetone was the coach for Mark Allen, and what he came up with was this simple formula. It's 180 minus your age, and that equals your maximum aerobic factor. Okay, and I use that number a lot actually with endurance athletes. Endurance athletes. Remember this, because you can't just apply this to every athlete. In any case, what we try to do is we try to improve their efficiency at that given heart rate. Okay, so let's say you're 30 years old and you have a MAF, your maximum would be 150. So what I would try to do then is I would have you run, I'm just picking that as you're pretending you're a marathon runner. I'd have you run and keep your heart rate between 140 and 150 on every run. And what we would hope to see is that between 140 and 150, your speed improves over time. So let's just say that you always run at an average of 145 beats per minute. The first time you go out and you run 7 miles per hour at 145 beats per minute. After a couple months of training, maybe you're up to 8 miles an hour at 145 beats per minute. So you see what's happening here? We're improving your efficiency. What that does is it allows you to kind of, you're using less energy to do more work. Okay, so it would have previously been, maybe 155 beats per minute for you to run 8 miles per hour. Now you're capable of running 8 miles per hour at 145 beats per minute. More training, more training, more training, more training. Maybe eventually you make it to 10 miles an hour. You're going 10 miles an hour at a heart rate of 145 beats per minute. So now you're going really fast at the same effort level that you were putting in to go 7 miles an hour. This increased efficiency makes you better at endurance training, long distance running, etc. That's one facet of how we would approach making you a better endurance athlete. Because of course the other thing I want to do is I want to make you faster. If your max speed is 10 miles per hour, then saying that you're going to hold 70% of your 10 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour, for the duration of the race, okay, that's doable. You could conceivably be like, okay, yeah, I could see that. But let's just say your max speed is now 20 miles per hour. So you can, on a sprint, you can max out and hit 20 miles per hour. Now holding 70% is a 14 mile per hour pace. That's fucking impressive. I'm not saying that it's not linear either. Okay, I don't want you, because I start the race and at a 10 mile per hour pace. Yeah, sure, but by the end of the race you might be down to even a 6. I don't expect people to hold a 10 mile per hour speed throughout their entire event. The point is, though, is that it's multifaceted, right? So we're going to approach it from many sides here. We're going to approach it from various techniques. So one, we're going to try to increase your max speed with probably like sprint work, sled work, strength work, parachutes, downhill running, uphill running, lots of sprint work and variations in your sprint work. Okay, and then we'll also tap into it with the heart rate training. And now you're going to take this philosophy and you can apply it to swimming. Absolutely very easy to apply it to swimming, cycling, rowing. Pick your event. You could probably even apply it to CrossFit if you were smart about it, and you thought about which WODs workout of the day, which WODs you wanted to apply it to. You could definitely take this and apply it to that. Hypothetically, picking like a longer one like Murph. Okay, maybe it takes you an hour to do Murph, but if you can hold a lower heart rate for that hour than you normally do, you're making progress over time, so that now you're improving your efficiency. Okay, and so conceivably now we're improving our endurance because we're becoming more efficient. Um, that is a good example of how you could apply it to something that's sort of not, um, you know, single modality. Because it's really easy to apply it to like, oh, running. It's the same thing all the time. But you apply it to something like CrossFit, and you've got all these other variables. There's some running, there's some pull-ups, there's some push-ups, there's some squats, there's more running. That's Murph. Um, so the thing is, if we take this and break it down to a certain level, you have to start paying attention to the training stimulus itself and deciding whether or not that training stimulus can be paced. And that's where I think heart rate training really shines, is whenever you're trying to set a pace and hold a pace. I don't I don't like heart rate training for a lot of other things though. I You're doing hit. I really don't think it's very good for hit. You're doing even sprint work. I'm not that crazy about sprint work. If you wanted to apply it to sprint work, what you could do is you could use it to monitor your recovery. So what you could do is you could say, okay, I'm going to run 200 meters, and my rest time is going to be however long it takes for my heart rate to come back down to 120. As soon as my heart rate comes back down to 120, I'm going to run another 200 meters. But then again, I'm going to rest till my heart comes back down to 120. And you just keep repeating this. And obviously your rest time is going to become variable. Now your rest time is going to keep extending, because the more 200-meter repeats you run, the longer it's going to take for your heart rate to come back down to 120 as you fatigue. What you might find actually is that initially your rest window starts getting shorter. So your first time through, you might have a longer rest window. The second time through, you might have a shorter rest window. It's going to actually go down a little bit because you're getting warmed up. But then as you fatigue, it's going to go in the opposite direction. So you'll see this U-curve of your recovery times. So when you first start off, you may take a little extra time. Once you're warmed up and you're in the groove, now you're taking the least amount of time, and then it's going to come back up as you fatigue. And that's actually not a bad way to monitor your fatigue level. It's really easy to start tracking, oh, my recovery time between sets is getting longer and longer. It's taking me longer to get back down to that lower heart rate. And so because it's starting to take you longer, you're back on that up curve, that might be a good time to cut your workout off. That way you don't overtrain yourself. So you've hit enough of a training stimulus today that your body's starting to require more time to recover. So you've probably depleted your glycogen stores. That may be a good time for you to stop. The thing is, Dan John told me once, stimulate, don't annihilate. You could just keep trashing yourself running 200-meter repeats, but at a certain point you're actually like tearing down the house. You're breaking down your muscle more than it's able to rebuild. It's better to break it down just a little bit so it stimulates to build. One step forward, or one step back, two steps forward. That way you end up with a net of one step forward, instead of, I'm going to crush myself and take 3 steps back. That way when your body does even take the 2 steps forward to recover, you're still not fully recovered. So the next time you go train or the next time you compete, you're actually slightly at a disadvantage because your body's still broken down and it didn't fully recover from the last time. So in any case, that's a little bit on heart rate training, how you might apply it, how you might implement it. It's just something to be mindful of. I don't get married to it. Don't focus on it too much. Some people get really obsessed, like, I have to follow my heart rate exactly. It's a guideline. Think of it as a loose guideline. It's a good thing to follow, but it certainly isn't the end all be all.